Hello, my name's Peter Wren from the I Wanna Believe channel and welcome to Paranormal Encounters. Get ready to journey into the mysterious and unsettling world of the paranormal. In this gripping show, Paranormal Encounters, we delve into the lives of those who have come face to face with the unexplained. Through candid and heartfelt conversations, we bring you the graphic, personal and emotional stories of paranormal witnesses, revealing the chilling realities that lie beyond the veil.
My name is Heather Leigh. I'm from Northern California, and this is my story. The house at 6901 Lindley Avenue in Reseda, California, my grandmother purchased as a new house in 1947. She was married to my grandfather at the time and had my mother and my mother's sister in the house. And almost immediately, they started experiencing people wandering around in the back part of the house. It was a modest 2-bedroom with a den, and people would wander in through the den, in through the hallway, and back out again, seemingly walking through an area that used to be a different structure, in and out of walls. They would never go through the front of the house or in any of the bedrooms. In particular, there was a man my grandmother always referred to as a hobo-looking fellow, and he never seemed dangerous, but they would be in bed at night and they would look up and there he would be standing in the doorway looking at them kindly. One particular incident, my mom was home from school as a teenager and she heard something and looked up, and there he was standing at the doorway of her bedroom, kind of just looking at her. And she said she didn't feel scared, but she knew that this was definitely not a living person. And he just seemed to be checking in somehow. And this happened pretty regularly to my mom and her sister throughout their lives. And then when my mom got married, she married my dad, and then my grandmother had given them the house. And so my mom had me, myself, and my younger sister in this house. And pretty much our entire lives, it was known that there were things that would wander around in the hallway, things that would wander around in the kitchen. For example, the thing in the kitchen liked to sneak up behind you. I never saw it, but you could definitely feel it. If you were cooking, it used to sneak up on my dad a lot. If you were cooking or washing the dishes, you would feel it, that there was somebody right behind you, and you would turn around and you would go to say something, and there would be, well, you couldn't see what was there, but there was definitely something there. And at a very young age, I started speaking to something that my mom, I called the bear when I was maybe 3 years old. And I would go into the den and I would sit down on the floor and I would just have lengthy conversations with this thing that my mom couldn't see. None of these things ever scared us, really. I think it was normal by that time. Nothing ever came into the bedrooms, but it was always like a circular area from the kitchen to the den to the hallway back to the back half of the living room. Nothing could ever go into the bedrooms or the front of the house. And my mom always suspected that perhaps the building that used to be there was a smaller shape, had a smaller footprint, and perhaps where these people were walking was the parameters of the old house that used to be there. I suspect that's probably true. Um, so fast forward to this man would show up all the time. I never saw him personally, but he would show up in front of friends. He would show up randomly sitting in the living room one day, and he would frighten people. You know, suddenly there's a man sitting in the living room, but he just genuinely seemed curious about what was going on in the house. He never spoke, but you would be sitting there. For example, a friend of mine was um, playing guitar, practicing for a show, and he looked up, and there was this man sitting there. Um, Fast forward to myself growing older and getting married, and then I had the house, and I had my daughter in the house. And the house had been quiet for some time. And one night in the middle of the night, my daughter woke up and was talking. And I wake up and I say, "Who are you talking to?" And she kept saying, "I'm talking to the man." And she was looking right at the doorway. And I knew, okay, this man is back. And we never knew who he was. I've tried various times to figure it out, but um, we've never been sure who this man was. Um, he, anyone who saw him said he dressed like a railroad man, or like a hobo, somebody who was riding the rails. He looked kind of dirty. He looked like he was wearing old denim or canvas clothing. And he just seemed to watch us over the years. He just seemed to watch us over the years. The thing in the kitchen was the scariest thing because the kitchen ran long ways down one whole side of the house. And anytime anybody was caught alone in the kitchen, once you turned around to head toward the door, it felt like it would rush at you from behind. And it really was a very scary feeling. You really felt the presence of it felt large and it felt fast. And once you hit the door, you were fine. It never, ever crossed the threshold of the doorway to the kitchen. Never. And, the house was filled with people and kids and, I'm going to say no less than 50 people have been present for all of these things in this house. It's kind of well known. Now I no longer live there. The house has been sold to someone else, and I haven't reached out to them yet, but I'm genuinely curious how it's going. And that's my story. The scariest thing happened actually after I moved out. So I moved out. I moved to the Redwood Forest of Northern California, and the house became embroiled in a family squabble after the passing of my grandmother. And I hadn't been inside the house in almost 15 years. And my mother and my sister, this was last Christmas, okay? My mother and my sister were going to have to go down there to take care of some probate stuff, to look at the house. And I had this really weird dream that, and I don't get scared very easy, you know, I see a lot of stuff. But anyways, I had the dream that scared me so badly, I had to turn on all the lights and I could not go back to sleep. Like, it genuinely scared me. So the dream is, I begin the dream and I'm standing in the master bedroom of the Lindley house. Something feels wrong. And I turn around and I'm looking into this hallway and there's a man standing there. And he's leaning back and he's very tall. And his top half of his face is in shadow, but I can see his glasses he's wearing. And I can see a glow to his eyes. You know, he doesn't have red eyes like some kind of weird movie thing, but it's just, and I feel immediate danger. And I think to myself, I messed up. I made a mistake by coming into this house. And I have the impression that he got in, crawling in through the back window. Those are two impressions that I have. And I think to myself, the only chance I have is to try to grab the mattress and push it towards him and jump out the window. And that, I'm preparing to do that. And then I wake up. And this man scared the daylights out of me. Like, you know, normally at the Lindley house, there was like a rule. They could never cross the threshold into the bedrooms. No entity ever crossed any threshold into a bedroom. And secondly, I never saw this man there. And I never felt this man there. He was so scary. And the impression I got is that he crawled in the times between when I was there and it sat empty for the longest time. And so this was right before Christmas. And so I get up, I turn on every light in the house, I make myself some coffee, and I try to calm down because I'm genuinely, like, I could not close my eyes. And so we go to Christmas at my mom's. We're sitting there, and my mom turns to me and says, "Heather, I had the weirdest dream." And I was like, "Oh, what do you mean?" And she said, "I was at the Lindley house, and all of a sudden I got goosebumps. All the hair on my body stood up, and I knew." She said, "I was standing in the master bedroom, and I felt funny, and I turned around, and standing in the hallway is this man." Even talking about it gives me the creeps. Standing in the hallway is this man, and I see him, and I think he can't come across the threshold. And as soon as I think that, he puts his hands up and he reaches out and hits me in the chest so hard that I flew back. Like he hit me hard. And then I woke up. And she said, I was so scared that I had to get up. It was genuinely terrifying. And I said, I just had a dream almost exactly the same. So this man showed up in my dream first and then in my mom's dream. And we joked around saying, well, I'm very glad that we both aren't going to this house together. You're going with my sister, so yay. Well, 2 days before they were meant to go, something happened, and my sister couldn't go. And so my mom calls me and says, we've got to go down to the Lindley house and look at it. And I said, okay. So we made a point to go there in the early daytime. Now, again, I haven't been into this house in 15 years, and my mom either. So we unlock the door, we walk into the house, and we're standing in the living room and kind of walking around and saying to each other, it feels good. It feels good. It feels peaceful here. I don't feel any scary man. Um, it feels good. So we're walking around the house. I'm taking pictures. Um, I meander down the hallway. I look in the rooms. I'm taking pictures in the master bedroom. I'm turning around and my mom comes in behind me and is just saying the words, "Oh, I think it's okay. It feels good." And as soon as she is standing in the master bedroom with me, immediately there is a presence there that hits us both hard. It's immediately scary. And we are both absolutely slapped with this fight or flight feeling. It was like, we've got to get out of this house right now. Like, it felt not like spooky danger, but it felt like physical danger. It was like being in a room with a tiger or something. It was, and, you know, my mom is 75 years old at the time. You know, she's not moving quickly. And she tossed me the keys, and we moved so fast out of that house, hopped in the car, and drove away. And I remember my mom saying, "Drive, drive," you know. It was genuinely terrifying. And yeah, we didn't go back. We did not go back. And as a matter of fact, I try to keep it out of my mind. I just have this feeling that I don't want to see this man again. And I don't want this man to know where I am. That is the distinct feeling of this entity, person, who I feel doesn't belong there. And my concern for the other entities in the house is, you know, I hope they're okay. But there's something in there now that is definitely scary, very scary. We've talked about this a lot as a family, and I think there's a couple of things. I think there may be some sort of energetic attractant. I don't want to say a portal, because, you know, I'm not sure what that means in the scheme of physics. But there seems to be something in the den, my mom believes, is where it is. And that it's probably always been there. It was probably in the house that was there before. But I think that's where they come from this thing in the den. However, I think this other thing came in from outside into an empty house. I think this other thing came in came in through the bathroom window, so to speak. You know, and I'm not sure where that thing came from, but I got the feeling it's maybe elemental. I don't believe it's a person necessarily. Yes, we have um, searched high and low for the records, and as far back as it goes, there were 5 main farm holdings in the San Fernando Valley at the time. That's as far back as we go, because before that, before the mission Spanish came, there was the Tongva people, who incidentally are the same peoples who have occupied Catalina Island for a long time. And if you know anything about the paranormal, the investigations and such, Catalina Island is very well known for the Tongva people and practices and beliefs before the Spanish came. And, you know, the Spanish wiped out all the records, really. You know, it's very hard to find out what was anywhere before that. But, you know, the house sits a block from what is called the LA River, which is a natural river that's been paved. So it sits literally a block from that, and that's as far as we know. We have found no records of any structure or anything like that. As far as we know, the Lindley House and the block of houses that were there were built with post World War II money, and that is as far back as we can tell that there's been a structure on that spot.
Wow.
The house went through probate in 2020, and the house was eventually sold at the beginning of 2023. The effect it's had on me mostly is that, well, one, not a lot of things frighten me. um, and number two is I think it's, I'm not a religious person, but I do know for sure that there are things that share space with us on a regular basis that we occasionally see with our eyes, but not always. There are other things that share space with us. I'm certain of that. I'm certain of that.
My name is Linda Quirino, and I've been a paranormal investigator for 42 years, which is quite a long time. But in those 42 years, I've experienced a lot of activity, a lot of experiences that have really played an important role in my life and in who I am. And I did spend a few years on a television show called Paranormal Survivor, commenting on all kinds of interesting investigations and all kinds of very nebulous things, shall we say. This particular case, Heather's case, is quite fascinating. And one of the reasons that it is because she and so many people in her life, generationally, experienced the same things. So, we have people who experienced things in the house immediately. Her grandmother, who purchased the house in 1947 and had 2 children in the home, they experienced things almost immediately. They were very clear about what they experienced. Wandering people in and out of walls. It seemed as though there was a structure there prior to. And then, of course, we have other people in the home who inherited the home who experienced exactly the same thing. And we also have certain elements that play a key role. For example, whatever was in the house, they really weren't afraid of it, which I find interesting. Obviously, they had a certain presence that was not disarming particularly, except for what was in the kitchen. And they all experienced the same experience in the kitchen. So something that came up behind them, and that was the only thing that was a bit disconcerting to them, that they felt maybe compromised at some point experiencing. So what is also interesting is, and we hear this a lot in different cases, that there was something in the house, a man who she said she never really saw, but other people, other friends, and other people to the house that were visiting saw. And that was a man who appeared to be watching. So there's that watcher in the house. And that's something that a lot of people do experience. And that she knew that there were things in the house always, and still managed to, raise children in the home, have people come in. What is interesting is the fact that after she left the home and after the home was empty, that really is interesting to me. And I think that would be interesting to any investigator out there. Because when the house was empty, it would seem that something came in to the house, and she was concerned about, what was in the house prior to being upset by this entity that came in. She didn't even know if it was human. The way she described it, it presented itself in a dream to both her and her mother, and we'll get to that later, as human, but it did have these eyes, and they seemed to her to be inhuman, and just the feeling of whatever it was inhuman, almost an elemental, which was interesting too. Because the house had been empty for so long, a lot of people do believe that abandoned homes can attract wandering energies and wandering spirits, and sometimes elemental spirits. So spirits of place, spirits of the land, primordial spirits that have always been there. Perhaps there was an elemental that moved in to the home that was not happy, that the home, the structure was left there unoccupied, and it wanted to claim it as its own. I don't know. That could be. That's something that's up for discussion. But interestingly enough, the dream was quite fascinating. And if you talk to people who have had paranormal experiences, they will tell you that entities, spirits, and elementals sometimes do tend to come and visit in dreams. So it's when you're in that altered state of consciousness, and they wish to make a connection with you. They will make a connection with you and anyone that is associated with you, anyone that shares a commonality between where a haunting is happening. They will experience often the same dream or elements of the dream. So there's so much to this incredible story. The fact that it's near the LA River, that's interesting too, because water elements, they tend to attract a lot of hauntings. She didn't specifically say that there was a portal in the house, but I like how she described it. She said, no, it's not a portal. And I'm looking through my notes. It's not a portal, because that's something that everybody says, but it's an energetic attractant. I kind of like that, which really does describe what a portal is. It's sort of a doorway that attracts energies. So I don't know. I just think that this case has so much in it, and that she would love to reach out to the people who are there now. So would I. But there's just so many elements to this that I think anybody who's been involved with the paranormal will tweak to, be interested in. And I think we need to just discuss this whole thing. I think it's amazing.